What's the deal with CHD Files and TeknoParrot? I'm technically not a technician, and in today's video, I'm going to show you two methods of extracting these files into TeknoParrot. We'll use two arcade ROMs for this, Hummers and the Fast and Furious SuperCars. However, before I'm able to do so, a word from the gents in the legal department.
This video is for educational purposes only, and is only intended to show you what I've done and what my results are. If you choose to modify your systems using this or any other information I've provided from any video or content I've created, you do so at your own risk. I, this channel, or any person connected to this video will not be held liable for any choices you make with your hardware or software. Modify at your own risk.
This video is also operating under the assumption that you've installed TeknoParrot and the needed dependencies and that you've legally acquired the needed ROM files. This channel does not support software piracy, and no one from this channel will provide ROMs or ROM links. So for the love of God, please stop asking. chdman.exe is a utility program used to manage CHD files, which stand for compressed hunks of data, a format primarily used to store compressed CD-ROM game data in a single file, often used in retro game emulation, particularly within the MAME emulator. Essentially, it allows users to create, convert, and manipulate compressed disk image files for gaming purposes. Key points about chdman and CHD files. The chdman tool enables users to create, convert, check the integrity of, and extract data from CHD files. Compressed CHD files use a lossless compression method to significantly reduce the size of CD-ROM game data while preserving the original quality. Originally developed by the MAME project, CHD files are particularly useful for emulating arcades with CD media or hard disk drives. Well, now that we know what CHD files are, what do we do with them? Great question, and it turns out we have a few options. The first we'll explore together will be a new option for me, and I happened to find it on the Internet Archive. It came as a compressed file titled extractfiles.zip. I'm not sure if I can link to it as the page also had TeknoParrot ROM files. So you'll have to find this one yourself. However, I can tell you what I found inside that zip file. The first item was the non-GUI version of 7-zip, next was the program chdman, and last was a batch file that was made to help automate the process of extraction. I also found a set of instructions that we'll use to figure this method out. However, the instructions are very basic and will require some expanding. I also seem to have an issue with the non-GUI version of 7-zip included in the extraction tools, and to help save time, I'll show you what I did to overcome my obstacle and not concentrate on 7-zip not operating properly. To move forward, I simply re-downloaded the portable 7-zip utility directly from 7-zip. I feel I must point out that if you download the same extraction tool from the Internet Archive as I have, yours may be fine, and my download may have been at fault. Regardless, re-downloading the program directly from 7-zip, renaming the file to match the one included, and then replacing the included 7-zip utility with my re-downloaded version seemed to have worked for me. First, we will expand an empty folder to one side of the screen, and then use 7-zip, a free zip utility, to open our downloaded extraction tools. When we do, you'll see the aforementioned 3 files, and we'll need to drag and drop the 3 files into our empty folder we've got expanded to the side of our screen. I do wish to open the batch file and inspect it. Building batch files is not my area of expertise, so I'm not really qualified to review this batch file. However, it doesn't hurt to take a look and do what we can to verify that it is not of a malicious nature. In my opinion, everything in the batch file appears to be in order, and to clarify, I am not the author of this batch file nor the uploader of any of these CHD files. I am, however, happy that they have been provided to us, and I assume its author is the same as its uploader, an individual known to me only as the Archive uploader Defa. After reviewing the batch file, let's move our first CHD file into our extraction tools folder. The first arcade we'll be working with is Hummer, an exciting and fast-paced racing game. After moving the CHD file to our extractions folder, we'll right-click on the batch file and tell it to run as an admin. As you can see, the batch file seems to be having an issue seeing our 7-zip program. Let's fix that. To do so, I'm going to locate the non-GUI version of 7-zip that I downloaded and placed on my desktop from the 7-zip's website. Once found, I'll rename it so that its name matches the name of the 7-zip file that came with our batch file. After it's been renamed, we'll move it into our folder and let it replace our old file. With my broken 7-zip now replaced, I'll run the batch file again as admin, and the preloaded automation in the batch file will process the CHD file to a disk image, then 7-zip will open the disk image, access the compressed files inside the image, and copy those files to an empty folder titled TeknoParrot within our extraction folder. Again, batch files are not my area of expertise, but from what I can tell, this batch file and the accompanying compression tools work together to extract the arcade ROM files to a usable media format that TeknoParrot can use. The total time for decompression was a little over a minute, and I've fast-forwarded this to help save time. Once our files are extracted, all we have left to do is rename our folder and move the files in our folder to the ROMs subfolder in our TeknoParrot directory. I like the naming convention that CHD uploader Defa used. The naming convention is clear, informative, and easy to understand. So I'll be copying that naming format, and if you look into the README files that Defa provided, you'll also find that with this naming convention you can use a pre-made DAT file and ROM lister to rebuild your ROM set if you wish, and that's an added hidden convenience of using this naming convention. Once you've copied over your ROM files, open TeknoParrot and verify that it is updated. If it is not, I do recommend updating it before you move forward. Generally, updating doesn't take long. However, the developers seem to be very active, adding to the arcade list and improving the arcade selection daily. After updating TeknoParrot, let's find the hamburger menu from the top left side, and click on it to reveal a new menu from which we'll need to select the Add Games option that should be second from the top. After clicking on the Add Games option, you will get a list of games that are compatible with TeknoParrot, and from this list we'll want to scroll to the arcade title Hummers, and we'll wish to make that selection. When done, click on the Add Game option from the right side menu. Doing so will kick us back to the previous menu. From this menu, we'll wish to click on the Game Settings option. Selecting this option gives us a new menu, and at the very top of this menu we're provided an area to select the right executable and a helpful hint in the form of that executable's name in brackets, giving us a hand in making that selection. After clicking on the line directly under the executable's name, we'll be given the opportunity to navigate to the Hummer executable and make that selection. After making the selection, click on the Open option, and we'll be kicked back into the Game Settings menu. Once we're back to this menu, let's click on the Custom Resolution and adjust the arcade resolution to match that of the desktop. For my setup, that will be 1920 by 1080 at an aspect ratio of 16 by 9. I'm also going to review the other settings and see if there is anything else I'd like to change. I do believe I'll change the input type to X input. Not sure this is going to matter, and feel free to keep it direct. Each of us are using different controllers after all. After saving the game settings, we'll move to the controller settings, and in this menu, I'll first bind the test and service menus. Generally, I bind these to my keyboard's 0 and 9 keys. However, that doesn't seem to be an option under X input, so, for today's video, I'll bind those to my controller's thumb buttons on both of my sticks. I do this as they aren't game actions, and I only need them to service the arcade. This should keep them out of the way but be handy if I need them. I'll also be binding the coin and start buttons to my controller's back and start buttons. Next we need to steer and control our Hummer, so I'll bind the steering to the X-axis on my left stick. I'll then bind the gas to the right trigger and the brake to my left trigger. The last two items are the change view and boost. Those two will be bound to my controller's A and B buttons. Once we're done, we can save these settings, and in doing so, we should be kicked back into the main menu. We'll now wish to boot and demo this cab. From the time Sonic started his journey until the very end, it took over 3 full minutes for this cab to boot. I'll not make you wait the full 3 minutes. However, it is important to point out that on newer hardware, that time may be less. I'm using very old hardware, as it's free and what I have on hand. In short, I believe boot times will vary from person to person. With the cab booted, let's look around, demo the cab, and get a feel for her. I must admit, this cab appears well designed with a crisp visual image. I'm uncertain if a YouTube stream would adequately showcase the graphics, but I must say that the image is clear, detailed, and visually appealing overall. The sound quality is exceptional. The music is clear, the sound effects are precise, and the narration is easily comprehensible. Overall, I'm like what I see, and we're not out of the menu. Speaking of the menus, those are also clear. with what seems to be a great deal of options regarding the Hummers you can pick and the maps we have to choose from. Both sets of options alone will give a game a replay value. Not sure if anyone saw, but you even have gameplay options. I've never enjoyed the cab. TeknoParrot is the first time I've gotten to demo it. When first starting this cab and seeing the intro, I could tell that this isn't an average racer, and I'm excited to learn more. One thing that did stink is the load times on this cab. I get it, good things come to those that wait. However, I've got crap to do, and time, in my old age, has turned into a commodity. I'm probably being a little dramatic, but the only other cab I can think of with a boot time close to this is Mario Kart. Also a fun arcade game, but I dislike the wait. Overall, the cab was fun, and I enjoyed it. The image and the sounds are all detailed and crisp, giving you an entertaining gaming experience that you're sure to enjoy. The Hummers look nice being detailed and each having a custom look and feel, and the racetracks have a great amount of detail and thought put into them. This cab looks and feels like time and detail have been put into the design. The only thing I'm not happy with is what to do during jumps. I do feel that I should point out that the cab is trying to give me some instructions along the way. However, it all seems to be in Japanese, and I don't speak a word of Japanese. I'll be on the lookout for an English patch, as that would be beneficial to the gamers in my household. Let's go ahead and exit this arcade and move on to our next arcade cab. However, before we move ahead, how about a quick word from this video's sponsor?
Hey folks, relive Saturday morning cartoons with the Thundar the Barbarian DVD box set. Join Thundar, Princess Ariel, and Ookla the Mock on their epic adventures in a wild, post-apocalyptic future. It's like you've stepped into 1980s cartoon heaven. This ultimate box set comes packed with hours of action. Plus, it's a collector's dream, so grab your popcorn, your pajamas, and your sense of adventure. Thundar the Barbarian is calling you back to the magic of Saturday mornings. Order now via the affiliate links above or in the description. It helps support the channel and it lets you relive some of those Saturday mornings.
With the lovely message from our sponsor out of the way, we can turn our attention to the second method I've been using. To be honest, this method is not what was shown in the instructions. It is, however, a combo of stuff I've learned from different places and is intuitively how I dealt with the issue without reading any of the instructions that Deefer left on his archive repository. Basically, I just made it up as I went, with nothing more than information I had stored within my brain. For this method, you will need a TeknoParrot CHD file and a chdman extraction tool. Again, you're on your own regarding the CHD file. However, I will link to the chdman extraction tool that I'll be using in this video. It's from a Recalbox repository, and if the author were listed, I would so thank this guy, as this tool has saved me a ton of space. However, that subject is a video in its own right. I'd also like to point out that chdman now has its own website, where you can download this tool with a pre-made batch file, but again, I'll be using the one from Recalbox as I already have it in my emulation toolbox. If we open the extraction tool I've downloaded from Recalbox, we'll see that we have two README files. I'll be opening the one listed as English, for the obvious reason. When we do, you'll see a very brief explanation of what each batch file can do. When we look in the center, you'll see a little info about the CHD format being supported by TurboGrafx CD, also known as the PC Engine CD, the Sega CD, and the Dreamcast. I can tell you that I've tested PS1 and Neo Geo CD, and those work as well. However, I did require the BIOS files for those consoles before my emulator would use CHD formatted ROMs. For this method, we'll again copy our CHD file to our extraction subfolder. For this example, that CHD file will be the ROM for the Fast and the Furious SuperCars arcade. After moving our ROM over to the extraction subfolder, we'll have 3 batch files to pick from. Each batch file option can be used to convert disk images to different formats. We'll wish to choose the option that is described as CHD file to CUE file. This conversion method will give us a mountable image, and if we mount this image, we'll have access to the files held within it. With our CHD file in our extraction folder, simply double-click on the appropriate batch file, and the system will start converting the CHD file to a mountable image file. As stated, this will be in CUE format, and I should note, you will get a bin file or two, as the CUE file indicates what is in the bin file, whereas the bin file itself stores the information. In this example, that information is our ROM files. We now have a mountable image, but what do we do with it? For that answer, I'll once again use the information stored in my brain, and we'll go right to one of the best free resources I know of, called Major Geeks. For those of you unfamiliar with Major Geeks, this website rates, reviews, and sometimes acts as a repository for open source, freeware, and shareware software packages. Once at Major Geeks, we'll need to head over to the left side menu and click on the CD, DVD, and Blu-ray option. When we do so, a new menu will present itself, and here we'll click on the Utilities option. You may get a pop-up ad or two, as this seems to be how this site supports itself. Simply disregard them and move on. Once in this new menu section, we'll need to scroll down and find a program titled WinCDEmu. With this app, we can take our newly converted image file and mount it like you would a standard CD, DVD, or Blu-ray disc. I will be linking to this WinCDEmu above and in the description. Once at the WinCDEmu download page, you'll be given a few options to download from. I'll be downloading directly from Major Geeks, as I feel they are a trusted source. Your download should start automatically, and Windows will try to block the download. If you wish to move forward, do as I have and tell Windows to continue with the download. When it is finished, let's navigate to our Downloads folder and find our installer. Setup is as easy as double-clicking the WinCDEmu installer, letting it run as admin, and clicking on Continue. When the installer is done, you will get a pop-up that lets you know the installation is complete. Simply click on the OK, and the installer will close. With our new app installed, we'll navigate to our CUE file, right-click on it, and select the option that is titled Select Drive Letter and Mount. When we do so, the image is mounted, and we can now access it via the Windows built-in navigation window. I can now access this image and the zip files that are within it, and to finish our file extraction, we'll need to tell 7-Zip where to place these files so TeknoParrot can access them. To extract these files, we'll click on the Extract option from the 7-Zip menu, and 7-Zip will ask us where we wish to place these files. As stated, moving forward, I'd like to use the naming convention that DIFA has put in place, so I'm going to copy the original CHDs file name that DIFA provided and paste that name into an empty folder within the ROM folder section. Once I'm done, I'll then tell 7-Zip that this new folder is the area I'd like my files extracted to. Once we've started extracting these files, it will take 7-Zip less than 35 seconds to move everything over. It all will be automated, and you'll be prompted to close the window when it is done. And of course, I'll be fast forwarding this to help save some time. I'll now look and verify that everything looks as if it has copied over correctly, and when satisfied, we'll launch TeknoParrot and begin setting it up. With TeknoParrot launched and updated, we'll look to the left top for our hamburger menu, and when found, we'll click on it to reveal a new menu. We'll need to click on the Add Games option, and when done, we'll be given a list of compatible arcades to pick from, and from this section, we'll want to scroll down to the arcade listed as the Fast and the Furious SuperCars. Once we've found this option, we'll need to select it, and then click on the Add Game option from the right side menu. Doing so will add this arcade to our game list and kick us back into the previous menu. We'll now wish to click on the Game Settings option from the side menu so we can access and make the needed changes to the arcade settings. The first item that we'll need to set will be the arcade's executable. Again, TeknoParrot will give us a helpful hint in the form of the arcade executable's name in brackets. We simply need to click on the line below and navigate to the listed executable and make that selection. Once selected, click on the Open option from below, and we'll get kicked back into the main game settings menu. I will be again changing the direct input to X input, and I did look around a little to see if there are any other arcade settings I wanted to play with. I didn't find any. I felt I should change. So, once I felt I had made all the changes I needed, I clicked on the Save Settings option at the bottom, and I was kicked back into the previous menu. We now need to select the Controller Setting option from the right side menu. When we do so, we'll be given access to all of the arcade's game actions and the service options that we have available to us. To start out, we'll be binding our Start button to the Start button on our controller, and views 1, 2, and 3 will be bound to the X, Y, and A buttons on my gamepad. I'm going to use the B button to change the in-game music, the test I'll bind to the right thumb, and the coin will be bound to the controller's back button. I skip the volume keys for a minute, and I'll get back to them. I just want to think about how I want to bind those. However, I do know that I'd like my shift up and shift down to be bound to my right and left shoulder buttons on my controller. If you guessed I was going to do as I have with our last arcade and bind the steering to the X-axis, the gas to the right trigger, and the brake to the left trigger, then you're 100% right, and well done. We're now back to those volume keys, and after thinking about it for a few seconds and realizing that I'm overthinking a little, I decided to simply use the D-pad up and down buttons to control the in-arcade volume. I shouldn't need these, but if I'm in the service and test menus, they will be helpful. Regardless, once you've made your binds, click on the Save Settings option from the bottom, and you'll be kicked back into the main menu. Once in the main menu, click on the Launch Game option, and we'll give this arcade a demo. The arcade ROM took less than 13 seconds to boot, and so far we've got no issues. Because it's such a short boot, I'll not be getting Sonic out for his normal run. We'll give the little guy a rest. After the ROM booted, the arcade cab needed an additional 11 seconds to start. When doing so, it seemed to resize the arcade resolution to match that of the desktop, and I did get a Windows Defender message pop up. I clicked on the Allow Access option and moved forward. After clicking on Allow Access, the cab finished booting, and I've got to say, my first impression of this startup video is very positive. I am slightly concerned that a YouTube stream may not adequately capture the crispness of the image. So please be aware that your image may not be as detailed as mine. The sound is also very crisp. I'm able to hear everything said to me very clearly, the music is also clear, and the sound effects when making selections are very detailed. So far, the arcade looks as if they put a lot of detail into the options. One thing I'm not sure I'm on board with would be the car upgrades. I think it would be more fun to earn those items. As far as I could tell, you can just keep upgrading your car and max everything out. I get that this is the Fast and Furious Supercars, and maybe I'm missing something. However, it seems it would be more fun to have something to work for. But that may just be me. After starting the race, you can again see the detail that has been put into the artwork. The models they used seem to simply be similar to those of the original Fast and Furious arcade, only in higher quality and better detail. I believe the gameplay is highly accurate, and the compression of this arcade ROM with both the 7-zip and the CHD compression utility yields no negative effects to the image, sound, or playability of this ROM. All of us in the community know that CHD files are great in MAME emulation for arcades with hard disks like Area 51. Some of us in the community also know that CHD files are great for digital replacements of console CD media, like with the Sega CD or PS1. But why would you upload compressed TeknoParrot ROMs recompressed into a CHD formatted container? What is the point, and how is doing so helpful? I only have guesses as to why this uploader chose this format, and I'm guessing it's because this container is a little harder to access via automated copyright detection scans. I don't believe double compression will free up much space, giving us less to download and store. However, I could be way wrong, as I didn't really check how much of a size difference there is between double or single compression. What I can tell you is I've acquired what looks to be a full set of compressed TeknoParrot ROM files in a CHD formatted container, and the total space for those ROMs is 277 GB, and if what I see is correct, that is of 151 arcade ROMs. So it very well could be a compression ratio thing. Uncompressed TeknoParrot ROMs generally take up a great deal of space, and I don't believe this will change as the nature of TeknoParrot isn't so much that of an emulator, but it is more of a compatibility layer. This compatibility layer is a much different format of game preservation than offered by MAME, as MAME focuses on preserving the full arcade and TeknoParrot seems to focus on the arcade software. Regardless, those are my guesses as to why CHD files are popping up on the great archive of the internet. If you have a guess or two, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I'm sure the community has ideas I've not considered. I believe it's safe to say that both the arcade cabs I've demoed today are among some of the best that TeknoParrot can currently operate. The Hummer was an absolute blast. It appears to have a significant amount of replay value, and it looked and sounded fantastic. It was a real pleasure to demo, and I'd like to visit that arcade cab in the wild. Despite the extravagant upgrades automatically available in the Fast and the Furious Supercars arcade, the gameplay remains enjoyable, and the updated details in the models, raceways, and backgrounds create a fresh and exciting adventure. For those of you that are still with me, well, you're my heroes, and just watching this video to the end is a big way to show your support, and I'd like to thank you for that. If you found this video enjoyable or informative, I kindly request that you click on the like button, activate the notification bell, and share this video with a friend or on your social media. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. While these actions may seem like simple mouse clicks, they have a significant impact on this small channel. Also, if you'd like to learn more on this subject, I've got another 2 great DIY videos showing you more TeknoParrot setup details. Regardless, thank you for your support.